looking for a better location, you're looking for a bigger home, but let's say you're not able to afford a $2 million home today or $1 million home today, and you want to start at the 400K range because that's what you can afford with your current income, with what's going on in your life right now, and you're comfortable with that size of a property. So what you do is you start small and you slowly work your way up. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Shiraz. I am the CEO of Suits Realty, a real estate firm here in New York City. We help clients rent, buy, and sell their real estate properties, as well as consulting. Ever wondered how you can get that $1 million house, but you're not ready for it right now? Well, there's something called house hacking. It's a way where you can start small and work your way up. And let me go over a couple of the pros and the cons with you, and then how you can efficiently do this over a course of a few years. Now, as you know, you can always sell your primary residence every 2 years and not have to pay any capital gains tax. That's very important to know, because if you sell prior to the 2 years, and you're gonna end up having to pay capital gains, and it's just gonna take away a lot of profits out of your property. So single person, 250K, you're exempt on the profits of the sale of the property. And if you're married, it's $500,000. So that's a significant amount of money. And it's every 2 years. So consult with your accountant on the best strategy for that. Usually you're gonna have to find houses that are fixer-uppers, because you're not gonna be able to build equity or enough equity on a property that's already finished and you're buying it at market value. It won't increase enough for you to sell down the road. So you're wondering what's house hacking? House hacking is if you're buying a house, but you buy a small house in the beginning, and then you slowly, eventually increase the size of the property or the location. You're looking for a better location, you're looking for a bigger home, but let's say you're not able to afford a $2 million home today or $1 million home today, and you want to start at the 400K range because that's what you can afford with your current income, with what's going on in your life right now, and you're comfortable with that size of a property. So what you do is you start small and you slowly work your way up. This is over the course of a few years. This is not something that's going to happen overnight. So this is definitely, it's going to take you 2, maybe 4, maybe 6 or 8 years to do. But eventually you'll get to a property that you love, and then you eventually say, okay, you know what, this is the house that I'm going to stay in for the rest of my life. Now, remember, whenever you sell a primary residence, it has to be sold 2 years apart from each other. So this way you're not subject to capital gains tax, or else you will have to pay capital gains on the margin between the purchase and the sale price of your property if it's within the last 2 years and it's a primary residence. You're exempt up to $250,000 in profits as single, and if you're married, it's $500,000. Let me explain. If you purchase a property for $400,000 and 2 years later you sell it for $600,000 and it was your primary residence, you lived there for those 2 years and you sold it, and if you're single, well, the profit's only $200,000, the difference between purchasing and selling, so you're exempt from capital gains tax. And if you were married, you're still exempt because it's below that threshold. But if you were to sell and you made, let's say, $400,000 and you're married, you're exempt up to $500,000. So that's very important to know those two figures, so this way you can successfully house hack your way up the ladder to a better home. Typically, the first rule of house hacking is that you need to search. You need to aggressively search the market for undervalued properties, and those will usually be fixer-uppers, which means that you're going to go in, either you're going to be hiring contractor or subcontractors to come in, electricians, plumbers, and do the job to fix up the property, or you're going to be fixing the property yourself, which is the most budget friendly. So fixer-uppers is your key. So don't be afraid to go look at properties that are listed with maybe a single image, maybe just the outside, and there's no pictures for the inside, because those are usually the houses that need work and they're not ready for a photo shoot or a video tour of it, because it's going to take away from that attraction of the property from people coming in. So it's not only just the price of the property that you're going to be looking for when you're searching online, or you're telling your realtor to search for properties. It's also going to be the quality. You want a subpar quality house. Now, again, you don't want something that's gonna have to do an entire foundation work. So, I mean, that's kind of expensive. You want to go in where you're maybe, upgrading the kitchen, the bathrooms, you're finishing up a basement, you're finishing up a cellar, you're, maybe making an addition to the property, like an extension to the property. And this will all raise the value of the property eventually when you're ready to sell. So let me talk about some pros and cons. We'll start with the cons first, and then I'll tell you some of the pros on this house hacking. So some of the cons are this is a slow process. So a lot of people might not have the patience They might eventually end up maybe lose their job, circumstances change. This is definitely because you're upgrading every 2 years. So if you think about it, you start small today with a starter home, and then you jump up to another one after 2 years, then the next one after 2 years. So you're already 2, 4, 6 years in by the time you hit your goal of which type of property you want to stay in. So this is definitely a slow process. It's not overnight. The next one is your construction cost. Going in, it's always important when you're looking at the property, before you sign your contract or before you close, before you do anything, you also take your contractor with you, or if you have the knowledge, you should know what is it going to cost me, estimate a ballpark. Of course, you're not going to know truly what the cost of the construction will be until you've purchased the property and started the work, but definitely a ballpark in the area of what you're looking at in order to fix up the property to livable condition to your standard. Another con is multiple moves. So you're going to have to be moving constantly, which could be a burden on you or your spouse or your children or your family. So definitely take that into consideration, that you are going to be moving constantly, whether that's in the same neighborhood or maybe you're jumping from one neighborhood to another, maybe one town, maybe a state to another state. So definitely it's going to be multiple moves, so be prepared for that. It can also interfere with your day-to-day life. So if you're working remote, I don't see it really interfering with your work life, but if you are working in a certain location and then you need to travel to that location multiple times, and then you're moving far away from there, your ETA is gonna increase from work to home, and you definitely want to consider that. Also, where you shop and where your kids may go to school, you want to know all of that information before you begin this process. The next one, the con, is timing the market. So as we know, sometimes the markets can go really strong and then the markets can be really bad. So that's why it's very important for you to get a property, if it's listed at a certain price, that you get that price down as much as possible, because the house needs work, and typically sellers will be willing to work with you because they do understand that the property does need work. So get that price down as much as possible so you can counteract that with how the market is going to be, because nobody can predict the market in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Let's say you're not ready to sell in 2, you want to sell in 3. Nobody can predict the market, not you, not the federal government, not your realtor, not the seller, nobody. So it's very important that you secure a good deal today, so this way, in the long run, no matter what the market conditions entail, you can always sell and gain some type of profit, or maybe you can hold on to the property for a little bit longer until market conditions get better, and then you can sell your property. The last but not least of the cons, it requires blood, sweat, and tears. This is the most important one. Definitely blood, because if you're doing construction, you're gonna have a few nails going through your hands or your foot. That's just guaranteed. And then you're gonna have the sweat equity. That's the biggest thing, is sweat equity. The more sweat equity you have inside that property, the more you're gonna be able to put towards your next property. And the next one is tears, because you'll be crying half the nights because maybe your bathroom is still not finished and your kitchen's not finished and you have bills piling up. So definitely this is not for the weak. It requires a lot of work. And again, to recap, it's a slow process. Construction cost, do your due diligence. You have to have your numbers up front, and then you can proceed with your purchase of the property. Now let's talk about pros, the best parts about doing this. Definitely the best parts about doing this, the timing the market also can come into your play. For instance, if you purchase a property at 500 and something like when we had like COVID happening, and then the property prices just escalated rapidly, where on a normal market you would have, let's say, sold at 575 or 600, and during that time period you were able to sell way beyond that, so at like 650, 700. So it did escalate the amount of money you can make. So definitely a pro is, if the market works in your favor, you can definitely walk out with a lot more equity than you thought you were. Another pro, bigger house. Obviously that's the whole point of this process, is to go from a smaller home to a larger home, or you can even go from a certain neighborhood that you're in and you want to be in a better neighborhood, so you can go from there, start from a little bit of the suburb of that neighborhood and then move into the actual neighborhood or the actual block that you want to be in. So this way you can slowly, gradually work your way there. You can sell, take the equity and use it as the down payment into the next home. That's one of the biggest pros, is the equity that you receive from the house you're going to sell now. You want to use it as your down payment and closing on the next property. And that's how you're going to be able to repeat that process and then eventually climb the ladder. Next one is a custom home. So along with the cons of having to do construction constantly throughout your process of getting a better house, But the best part is it's custom to you. You'll be able to select the tiles, the colors of the kitchen cabinets, the countertop material. You'll be able to figure out if you want to put a pool in if you don't have one already. So it's gonna be truly custom to you, so you'll be able to live in a property that you've built to your liking. The last pro is equity. Let's say you end up in a house that you say, hey, you know what? We decided this is it. This is the house we're gonna stay in. Now we're gonna travel, work, whatever it might be. And rest assured, you're going to have a good amount of equity in that property because, again, you follow the steps. You purchased properties that were fixer-uppers, and then you went in and fixed it yourself. You gained that sweat equity, and now in return, you have the fruits of your labor, which is if you ever need to sell, you have a ton of equity sitting in that property. And then as time goes on, that equity will only build. To conclude, cons. You're going to have a lot of work to do. It's going to cost money. It's going to be a lot of research. And that's the only way to find the right property. Pros, you'll have equity. You can purchase another property without having to save up money in a sense, where you're using the equity from your old home to put into your new home and then build that equity and then transfer to another home. So pros, custom home. Cons, you're going to have a lot of work to do. Well, guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned something. And if you did, make sure you click like and subscribe and share this video with all your friends and family. You can also follow me on my other social, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And if you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment below, or you can also send me a message. Thank you. See you on the next one.